This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show. Your war room for insider news and draft analysis from deep within the confines of Cowboys headquarters at the Star in Frisco.
Dallas Cowboys select C.D. Lamb, wide receiver.
And now, your hosts, Dane Brugler, Jeff Kavanaugh, Kevin Turner, and Kyle Yeomans.
It's a wonderful Thursday edition of the Draft Show presented by Miller Lite from the SWBC Mortgage Studios here from the Star in Frisco as we continue to get you ready for the NFL Draft as it is now just 81 days away. April 29th is when things kick off in Cleveland, Ohio, and it's starting to get to be crunch time because, well, the Senior Bowl is in the rearview mirror. The heat is starting to get turned up on these front offices, and the same thing goes for the Draft Show. Jeff Kavanaugh, we've got Kevin KT Turner, Dane Brugler from The Athletic. I'm Kyle Yeomans. Just trying to drive the bus, as always, here on this show. And, gentlemen, like I said, Senior Bowl in the rearview mirror. We talked about it a little bit on Tuesday with Bucky Brooks, Brian Broaddus, and David Hellman, and had a great conversation about kind of the Cowboys' feel with it. I kind of want to get into some of the prospects today. We're going to talk a lot about the quarterback position. We're going to talk about the corners as well in that secondary. Can the Cowboys find their type of corner? And by type of corner, Jeff Kavanaugh has a different idea of what type of corner he potentially wants to see as a Dallas Cowboy. But Dane, start us off by kind of giving us your final general thoughts in terms of the Senior Bowl, what you took from the week down in Mobile.
It was definitely weird. It was definitely different. And, you know, that's different than what we're used to. But at the same time, I'm very thankful that we had it. All the credit to Jim Nagy and his staff for being able to pull it off in a safe environment and gave the teams opportunity to look at these guys even more, and it also gave a lot of these players the opportunity to help themselves. And we touched on it last week a little bit, just some of the risers, guys that helped themselves. But some of these players, we're going to look at them totally different now compared to a week ago because of what they were able to do. Quinn Miners from Wisconsin Whitewater being one of the biggest risers. A guy like Richie Grant, who I had a third-round grade on him, loved him coming into the week. After seeing him live and up close like that, he's going in the top 50. That's wow. You gained a different vantage point, I think, seeing these guys live, at least for me, and that's my process and the way I look at these guys. But a lot of other players help themselves. D. Eskridge from Western Michigan. It's a loaded group of slot receivers in that second to fourth round range. How are these guys going to really shake out in terms of how they're going to be stacked? And D. Eskridge and Amari Rogers and Shi Smith, the guys that were down there, Cade Johnson, they were able to make kind of a statement like why they should be a little bit higher. So just a really productive week, and I think we have a better feel for these players now than we did before the Senior Bowl.
KT?
Yeah, I would say my thoughts, and I don't want to be a jerk, but if I was a cornerback, I would not go to the Senior Bowl ever again because all the wide receivers are really good. And I'm kind of kidding. I'm sort of kidding a little bit, but it was amazing how you go into the week with an eye on cornerbacks and you just get distracted by all of the wide receiver talent. And I'm in this world right now. I don't know how you guys look on your boards, and I know on the Thursday incarnation of the Draft Show, we haven't done a lot of wide receiver talk yet, partially because the Cowboys are kind of set there. But I'm sitting there going, okay, am I really going to have 15? Am I really going to have 20 wide receivers in the top 3 rounds? Like, there's a lot of separation on the draft board I'm going to have to figure out because as I continue to work through the wide receivers, I'm going, okay, well, there's enough about him that I like that I would consider him a top 100 pick. And I end up going, oh, my God. And then meanwhile, I come away going, okay, well, what cornerbacks really impressed me? Keith Taylor was great in the game on Saturday. Keith Taylor, the cornerback from Washington. I'm not sure I loved his tape. In fact, I can tell you that I didn't really like his tape. But he was moving a little better at the Senior Bowl. And you're asking yourself, okay, how do you balance that out? Did he just improve? Like, what happened? So I'm more confused at cornerback maybe than ever based on the guys who were at the Senior Bowl. But, man, that wide receiver position, I'm in love. I will never sign a wide receiver again. I think I'll just continue to draft them. They're incredible.
That's a good point, because I thought throughout the week it was impressive for some of those corners that ended up playing decently well. I mean, you mentioned Keith Taylor. I thought he had a poor week of practice, and I'm right there with you, KT. I don't like his tape that much. I mean, I had a late third-round grade on him in terms of his tape, but he played really well in the Senior Bowl. I mean, there were guys like oh man, I'm blanking on their names. Oh, Trey Norwood and Trey Brown, both out of Oklahoma. I thought they had decent weeks of practice, and then I don't think they played very well. So overall, I think you're looking at the cornerback position as something that is kind of wishy-washy when you go up against those receivers that are as talented as the wide receiver group was down in Mobile. Now, Jeff, what were your kind of thoughts on the week? Did you agree in the fact that some of these corners just didn't show out the way that you thought they would?
Well, I think I would think that NFL teams know going into this that it's really hard, because in the real world, it's not all that often that you're legitimately going to be covering a guy all by yourself and he can run a drag all the way across the field 5 yards, and it's like, oh, good luck. So I think NFL teams know that it's advantage wide receiver in the one-on-one drills. But I think guys like Melifonwu from Syracuse, Aaron Robinson, Central Florida, I think there were DBs that helped themselves throughout the Senior Bowl practices. So I wouldn't be terrified to go there if I was a DB. I would just know that you're going to go there and it's going to be what you're used to in practice settings. One-on-one is hard, and you gotta really believe in yourself and go ball out. But there's opportunities to make plays, and I thought some of those guys did.
Dane, do you agree?
Yeah, I thought Trey Brown was one of those guys who he's 5'10" on a good day, but his competitiveness that he played with was awesome to watch during practice. Really impressed with what he did. Yeah, and I agree with Jeff. I think that you're kind of, as a corner, you're expected that you're probably going to have a tough time. You're going to get beat. So if you do make a play, teams are going to remember that. And so I think you take your chances and you go there and compete. And we saw it, this year with a guy like I said, with Trey Brown. I thought helped himself as he projects probably as more of a nickel, but a guy that coming out of Senior Bowl week, teams maybe have a little bit better opinion of.
What did you think of MVP or offensive MVP of the Senior Bowl, Kellen Mond? And I know a lot of fans around here want to hear about Kellen Mond because they just grew up Aggie fans. I mean, there's a lot of Texas A&M Aggies around this state, and I know with Kellen Mond, there's been kind of wishy-washy whenever it comes to his thought process, whenever it comes to his draft rating. I mean, the inconsistency is on the field and off the field with him in terms of the grading of him and the scouting of him. Dane, what did you think about him throughout the week and ultimately culminating in that MVP outing during the game? But I kind of want to just hear about what he did at the Senior Bowl.
I think it mirrored what we saw on tape for his career at A&M. And the thing that just bothers me the most with Mond is I could show you a clip or a game from his sophomore year and then show you a game from a senior year, and it looks like it was the same guy. Yeah, I think the same level of inconsistency. He's clearly talented. Clearly, he's got a good arm. He can move around a little bit. He'll make some really impressive throws. His highlights are as impressive as anybody's. But when you talk about the full scope, the body of work, I just see the same player that we saw as a sophomore, that we're seeing as a senior, and we saw during practice, up and down with his decision-making, up and down with his placement down the field. So it's easy to look at his highlight tape and say, okay, yeah, this guy can play. But when you look at the full body of work, it's just a mixed bag. And so I find it really hard to get excited about any of these senior quarterbacks. There's not a single senior quarterback that I'm really overly excited about. And Mond's kind of in that mix with Jamie Newman and the rest of that group that probably going to go somewhere on day 3. It's just hard to guess exactly where. It's just going to come down to teams and their preference and exactly what they're looking for.
You're still not very excited about Mac Jones either?
Well, I don't consider him. He's not a senior, so
okay, that's fair.
He's all the underclassmen. I can get there. Even Davis Mills from Stanford. There's something there, and I think that there's a little bit of optimism for Davis Mills. I think he's got a good chance to be drafted ahead of Kyle Trask, and it's because he's got starter potential. So, and Mac Jones, I thought he helped himself by being there. I think the obvious connection now is going to be with the Panthers. Matt Rule couldn't help but rave about Mac Jones, the way he handled himself during practice, behind the scenes, his leadership, the way guys follow him. It's going to be interesting to see how that might play out on draft day, with the Panthers having a lot more intimate knowledge of Mac Jones and how he's wired compared to some of these other teams that are looking at quarterbacks in the draft. So it's a really interesting group of quarterbacks this year, where the first 6 drafted might all be underclassmen, then the other 3 or 4 drafted could be seniors.
Jeff, whenever it comes to the quarterback position, I mean, we're talking about these senior quarterbacks, but I mean, it's a very heavy field whenever you look at Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, all of which that'll probably go inside the top 10. And now there's been rumblings around Dak Prescott, and of course, we're coming down to the wire. I mean, the transition tag period starts in 19 days, and it ends a couple weeks after that, or 3 weeks after that. So ultimately, your clock is running out on Dak Prescott. If you're the Cowboys right now, and Brian Broaddus has said this previously on the Tuesday show, that once that time starts clicking and it starts ticking a little bit further down and you have to franchise Dak Prescott, you're going to have to start talking about one of these quarterbacks. But which quarterback would you want to talk about if you were the Dallas Cowboys?
Oh, I would like to quote the great Kevin Turner if I could, and let you know.
I heard he's pretty good at this stuff.
I hate quarterbacks. So, if you are the Cowboys, what you should do is sign your top 8 quarterback in the NFL. You should have done that 2 years ago, 1 year ago, and then you should do it again now. Now, if because you are the Cowboys front office, you've screwed this up so royally that now it's going to be really, really hard because Dak's like, well, I'm on the doorstep to free agency, so you're going to have to blow me away. And Jerry's still like, hey, you sign what we offer you, and that's it. Then, yeah, you may have to look at a guy because you have a top 10 pick. And I think realistically, you're going to be talking about either Justin Fields, Trey Lance, or Mac Jones, because just going off of what we hear and what we're seeing, I would imagine that Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence are gone, and then it's kind of the wild card. What is the order, and how quickly do they all go? Because I could totally see a scenario where 5 quarterbacks are gone when the Cowboys pick. I could see that.
Yeah.
But I think we also have to acknowledge it's possible that 2 quarterbacks are gone when the Cowboys pick. It's the weirdest top of a draft that I've seen in the 7 years that I've been doing this, because I don't know, if you're not sold, there's teams in the top 5 or in the top 8 that there's at least 4 or 5 of them that I think should take quarterbacks. But if you don't believe in the guys that are available this year, then you're not going to, because all of these teams have other options they could roll with. So if you're the Cowboys and it's, hey, which guy are you keeping an eye on? I guess the most likely answer would probably be Trey Lance, North Dakota State. And that would be wild to me if the Cowboys were like, hey, we're going to move on from a top 8 quarterback in the league because this guy's got a big arm and he's athletic and maybe he can be good one day. So Cowboys, sign your quarterback.
Hey, come on the magical mystery ride with me real quick. I'm coming to you now as half myself, Kevin Turner, and half the Dallas Cowboys. And but the fact that we're even talking about this already tells you that the Cowboys are pretty comfortable being loosey-goosey at the quarterback position, because otherwise the deal would have already been done. Like, it just would have been done. And I don't want to hear the stuff about Dak's side and what they're demanding. There's a market value. The deal could have been done and should have been done. All right? And that's the end of that. That being said, after taking a full dive, I carved out some special time to really go through all few of the games that we have of North Dakota State. My quarterback 2 this year is Trey Lance, and I am so comfortable with that.
Wow.
I'm kind of in love with the guy. Again, I'm willing to be loosey-goosey at the quarterback position, I guess, right? Because I think Dak should be your quarterback, but if we're gonna get to this point, this hypothetical area that we're talking about, which would even have us talking about a quarterback, then I'm doing whatever it takes to get Trey Lance on my team if I'm the Dallas Cowboys. He would have an ideal 1 year to sit while Dak is on the tag, and then we are ready to go. I think his ball placement and arm talent is just as good as Zach Wilson's, better than Zach Wilson personally. I think the way that he feels pressure in the pocket, like anyone can play when the pocket's clean, right? But when he can feel it in the pocket, and that's something that I didn't always see with Justin Fields. A little escapability, yeah, he can kind of move around, but I didn't always feel it. Trey Lance feels it, and for a 19-year-old to have that season he had, he looked pretty advanced. He didn't look like a 19-year-old. And I understand Division II. I get all that stuff. But if we're rolling dice anyway at the position, that's my guy, because there's a whole other dynamic he adds. Watch the James Madison game from 2019, which he only throws the ball like 15 times that game. He runs the ball 30 times in that game.
Is DiNucci in that game?
An entire other dynamic to the game.
Yeah, 2019 he would be in that game.
Right. Trey versus the Nooch.
That's fascinating.
I like it, KT. It's
Trey
bold.
Lance is your guy. It's very bold. I mean, you're talking about a guy, and I like Trey Lance, but I mean, we have to recognize just how unprecedented of an evaluation this is. The guy has 17 career starts, all versus FCS competition. You look at his college resume, and the stats just on paper look great, but you know how many times he trailed in the second half of a game in his career? Once. Like, there's so much about him we don't know. There's so many one read and then run type of plays on his film where he's not making full field reads. He's not going through progressions, things like that. Last year, this great season that he had, which was statistically great, 16-0 season, national title, FCS. He averaged in his career 18.6 pass attempts per game. Meanwhile, the running game, they averaged 45 rush attempts per game at North Dakota State. They leaned on that rush, that run game. That's what their offense is based off of, and then they would pass off of that. So I love the traits. I think that the poise that he shows is really impressive. The competitive nature that he has, I like. But there's so much about him as a quarterback that we don't know, and maybe he'll get there. But I mean, we have to recognize just how big of a risk that it is. Not just moving on from Dak and going to a new quarterback, but moving on to a new quarterback that is there's so many unknown variables right now. I mean, for me, I'm a Zach Wilson guy. I wrote about him back in October. I took a lot of heat when I said he's right there in the mix to be quarterback 2 behind Trevor Lawrence. But I think more people are catching on that Zach Wilson he's legit. And I think, quarterback is such a hard position to evaluate. And, I've had plenty of misses doing this. So, I am not like the final voice on these quarterback prospects. But something that I really look for is the ability to make the great spontaneous decision. That's an old Bill Walsh thing. You want guys that can make that spontaneous decision and create. And to me, that's Zach Wilson. His ability, his feel for throwing off platform, his feel for ball placement down the field. He's naturally accurate. He's got a whip of an arm. I wish he were a little bit bigger. There's some durability concerns there. Just that narrow frame. But and sometimes he'll play an overdrive. He'll bail up the pocket before he needs to. Mechanics get a little wild. That's part of his game. But he has a natural ball placement to him down the field. I think there's a lot you can do with the Zach Wilson. I think he's the clear number 2 quarterback in this draft. But it's just a really intriguing group of passers because they're all really, really talented, and they could all end up being starters in this league.
Just to play devil's advocate here, Dane, and you were talking about with Trey Lance and his competition and the unknowns, and there certainly are a ton of unknowns coming from an FCS level regardless. But with Zach Wilson, are there not still a ton of unknowns because he had one good season? I mean, yeah, he had a decent year in 2019, but I mean, his completion percentage went from 62 to 73 in 1 year, and then all of a sudden he's a top 2 quarterback in this draft behind Trevor Lawrence. But he also played kind of lesser competition than the guys like a Justin Fields and a Trevor Lawrence and a Kyle Trask and a Mac Jones, because you look at BYU's competition: Troy, Navy, Louisiana Tech, UTSA, Texas State, North Alabama, Coastal Carolina was their toughest game. I think overall there's still a lot of question marks around Zach Wilson. Why is Zach Wilson more of a lock than maybe a Trey Lance?
Well, I just think we know more about Wilson. And, I mean, you're absolutely right in terms of the level of competition. But I also think there's a pretty big gap from, talking about Troy compared to the Missouri Valley Conference at the FCS level. And
True.
That's just the facts. There's nothing against that level of comp. It's just there's a different competition level in terms of talent. So Zach Wilson, I think he also benefited from a strong run game, reliable targets to throw to, a good offensive line. So yeah, absolutely. I don't think Zach Wilson's a sure thing by any means. I'm a more of a believer in his talent. I think we've seen more, we know more about him compared to Trey Lance, and then let's just throw Justin Fields into the mix, so we can talk about him as well. I think that there's a lot to like about him from a physical perspective. I think he's a naturally accurate guy. We saw that in the Clemson game. When he's in rhythm and everything is going right, the play design is where it needs to be, he looks outstanding. But when that first read's taken away, or the defense does something with their coverages or their blitz that he hasn't accounted for, that's where the play breaks down. And that's where he needs to have a better plan B, C, and D and play with more urgency if he's going to make it at the next level. But I think the intangibles, the athleticism, the accuracy, it's all there for Fields to make it. It's just he needs to get over that hump when it comes down to making that spontaneous decision, like I mentioned with Zach Wilson.
Hey, Jeff, can I run something by you real quick? Because another thing I want to throw in about really just the position in general. And I do think the Cowboys will get a deal done with Dak. I think they will do it reluctantly. But if they don't, that tells you that they didn't value their investment, okay? So it's like they'll just let a top 8 quarterback in the league walk. Well, then I've got no problem letting my quarterback run 20 times a game if he needs to. And Trey Lance is a guy who I think could probably do that for you. I guess I'm done looking for the perfect passer now. I'm done looking for all that if my team right here is not going to go ahead and go full bore with the investment because they want to sign the running back and the linebacker. Like that's kind of where I kind of go, well, apparently I don't need to worry about developing this guy into some long-term thing, and I don't need this guy to be a 15-year quarterback for me, which is ideal. Ideally, you have that guy who's your quarterback for 10 and 15 years, and he becomes an excellent drop-back passer and all those things, right? Well, if you're just not going to sign the guy because you don't believe in giving him that much money, because you don't believe in giving him market value, then screw it. Treat the quarterbacks like the running backs then. Burn them. Who cares? What do you think about that, Jeff?
I mean, I dig the idea of unleashing the running quarterback. I think it's fun. I love watching the Ravens play. I don't know how Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb would feel about it.
Probably not.
Because, I also like to be able to throw the ball. So, a quarterback who's going to run, like, what does Lamar do? Probably 15 times a game, give or take. I think it's fun for winning. I think it's a good way to be consistently good. And if you're never going to pay a quarterback, I don't mind that approach. But I've got a team that's got some really good receivers and a really good quarterback. So, but KT, your love for Trey Lance makes me think I'm cool with him, and we can rock with him because I believe he can throw. We don't have to risk our guy 15 times a game, do we? We don't have to.
We absolutely don't have to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't want to paint the picture that he's like yeah, we could.
You could.
I don't want to paint the picture that he's like not a throwing quarterback or whatever. Like, we all. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think we all kind of thought Lamar Jackson. We knew he had work to do in the passing game, but I think we all thought he might continue to take a step forward, maybe not have that regression. You kind of go look at their wide receivers in Baltimore, like, no offense, but like they brought in Des Bryant. They were that desperate. Like, they need a few more weapons out there to kind of help him out a little bit. But I don't think those are like. I want to be careful when we talk about other players like that we're not talking about a comparison. A couple things about Trey Lance that really jumped out to me, and again, I'm talking about a 19-year-old, and I'm talking about a guy who ideally doesn't play again next year. Hopefully, we get a preseason game, and maybe he can play then. But hopefully, he gets time to sit behind someone for 1 year at least. And one thing that I think about with Trey Lance, some little things just like playing off of play action, because they did run a lot. That was very helpful for him. Or throwing on the run and things like that. You can see that and see those skills. And then along with when you have, blitzes coming from the blind side, just when you can't see it, to feel it and know it and step up out of it. just looked very comfortable doing that. And those are the types of things that I really love when the guy's keeping his eyes downfield when he's in the pocket and moving around. Now, I understand some of the things that Dane was talking about. We got to make sure this guy can throw with the right amount of anticipation and things like that. Mm-hmm. How accurate is he on the 5-yard drag, all day long? You didn't see a ton of that. And a lot of his throws are throwing it down the field quite a bit. You want to see a little more accuracy and a little more consistency and, quite frankly, more tape in general. You want to see more tape. But I'm pretty smitten with my guy Trey Lance right now, and I think based on what I've heard, and I don't know the guy, so if I could text him, I would. But I think you've got a guy who's got a pretty good football IQ and things like that, who's going to be, I don't want to be generic Jason Garrett here, but kind of right kind of guy type of thing. You hear those things, so I think that's good. But we heard those things about Carson Wentz too. So
yeah, that's true. Out of the same program.
Last thing I'll say about these quarterbacks is that I think this year more than ever with this group of quarterbacks, it's going to come down to the interviews. When just to figure out where are they in their mental development, how much do they know, how much do they not know, how much are they able to learn. How those interviews go are going to be just paramount. When they throw out the tape on and they say, okay, well, what are you looking at here? Down and distance. What's the coverages? Are you setting the protections? What are you doing? Okay, this read's taken away. What is your outlet? What's your thought process right now? Just going through all of these positive and negative plays, and to get a better feel for where they are mentally. That's the key every year. That we don't have access to that information, and it's a big missing piece of the evaluation process for those of us on the outside when evaluating quarterbacks. But more so than ever, because college offenses are getting easier and easier to operate, and so I think for a lot of these quarterbacks, they're less prepared for the NFL. So for the interview process, it's going to be important for them to really understand the questions that are going to be asked and to be ready for them.
Yeah, and it's going to be virtual this year because of everything that's gone on with COVID-19. So add an extra wrench into it is how these virtual interviews are going to go. They did a lot of that last year as well because there were no 30-day visits, because there was no Dallas Day. But it's going to be much of the same this year. So hopefully the Cowboys and really everybody around the league able to evaluate the right way. And just one thing added onto what KT and Jeff were talking about before we had to break here really quickly. But The fact that you have Kellen Moore as your offensive coordinator, KT, makes me think that your theory of running the football with your quarterback may be debunked just a hair, because he doesn't like running the football a whole lot. You can kind of see that as a former quarterback himself. They like to throw the football, and so I think Trey Lance can certainly do that, but you're not going to run it 30 times a day. So I guess, Jeff, you can rest easy at night thinking that Trey Lance wouldn't run it 30 times in a game every single time. But wanted to throw that out there.
Sign the quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. Let's sign Dak and not have to worry about that. I agree. Let's go to break. When we come back here on the DallasCowboys.com draft show, we're going to talk about a little bit of Twitter on the 20. We've got some great questions coming in from you guys on Twitter when we return right after this.
There's nothing as unique as our eyes, which is why Essilor pioneers ways to make lenses as unique as you. Verilux for super sharp vision, Essential Blue for protection, and Crizal for freedom from glare. 3 cutting-edge solutions in a single unique lens. So whatever your needs, insist on Essilor. Visit your local Essilor experts and find the perfect lens for you. See more, do more, Essilor.
Since 1865, Stetson hats are American-made with pride right here in Texas. And Stetson is proud to be on the field with America's team. Want to show your Texas and team pride too? You can. By purchasing your own Stetson, you can look just like how the flag guys do on field at every home game. Stetson hats, the official crown of all self-respecting Cowboys, and your favorite football team.
Get yours today at shop.dallascowboys.com or at stetson.com.
I'm Jay Novacek, former tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. Back in the day, I was the guy who always got the tough yards, and that's why I run with John Deere today. In fact, I have a John Deere 3025E tractor that can handle any yard work I need to do, even the tough yards way out back. So if you have 1 acre or 1,000, John Deere has the equipment that's just right for you. Visit a John Deere dealer today and run with us. We are the official tractor provider of your Dallas Cowboys.
Dear, it's 1908. Don't you think we should get electricity?
And stop using candles to see at night.
It's just electricity lights up the room fast. It's more reliable than candles blowing out, and people seem to love it nationwide.
Well, candles are...
Dear, did you just run into the wall?
Nope. May I have a new candle, please?
Historically, switching to new technology is a no-brainer. Today, it's AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure, and nationwide. Switch to AT&T 5G. It's not complicated. 5G requires compatible plan. May not be in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show.
Back here with a second segment here at the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show. We've got Kevin KT Turner, Jeff Cavanaugh, Dane Brugler. I'm Kyle Yeomans, as always, here on the Draft Show every Thursday at 10 a.m. Central Time. Glad you guys are along for the ride. So now we've got some time to hit up these Twitter questions and go into some Twitter on the 20.
Twitter on the 20.
Chris Beam in the back, punching the buttons and doing a fantastic job, as always. Okay, we're going to start things off with John Marshall on Twitter. He says, I want the team to fix the defensive tackle position. I want to also add to that, John, so do we all. We all want that to happen. He says, in Dan Quinn's defense, is Tristan Hill and Neville Gallimore more suited to a 3-tech or more of a penetrating 1 technique? And what are the top defensive tackles on the board who can fill each of those roles? Jeff Cavanaugh, we'll start with you.
Oh, I think to me, both Tristan Hill and Neville Gallimore are guys that are your rotational 3 techniques that you're going to line up over the guard. I don't think either one of them is a guy that you necessarily want having to battle double teams, because I don't think either one of them is going to handle it very well. So to me, I think in this draft, if you're looking for a defensive tackle, I'm looking for the big boys. And it's a really interesting group because I will agree with Dane that I think, to me, Christian Barmore is the best defensive tackle prospect because I think he offers both, where I think he is powerful enough to play the run and battle and hold his ground, but he also offers some upside as a pass rusher. And then I do like Marvin Wilson. Despite the not good tape of 2020, I still think even on his 2020 tape, the Florida State defensive tackle, former 5-star recruit, there's just something about when I see guys that have violent hands that are hard for guys to sort of maintain blocks on, I like that in a player. And then in 2019, when you just watch him when he hits people, it looks like it hurts a lot, and I like that in my defensive tackles. So Christian Barmore, Marvin Wilson, and then I would throw in NC State's, you'll have to tell me how to say his first name, Alan McNeil. He's a guy that I think when you watch him play nose tackle, knows how to extend on guys, knows how to get rid of blockers, has a nice first step. So I think he's one of those guys that is a 1 technique, but also has a little bit of quickness that you want in a 3 technique. So I think that would be a really good fit for this team. So those are the first 3 names that jump to mind for me.
I want to throw another name out there, and I'm not reaching for this guy, but if you're telling me we get to round 4 and maybe he's still there, I would take a shot at 345-pound Tyler Shelvin from LSU.
Okay.
Didn't love his tape. Don't think he's got great get-off, but I said his weight, 345 pounds. He's going to eat space. He's going to take on double teams. He is a run player. He's not going to add anything as a pass rusher. But if we get the feeling that Dan Quinn wants that bigger defensive tackle on the inside, I think Tyler Shelvin's a name I've kind of written down as kind of a guy who I think had a little more upside, a little more ceiling, and maybe didn't show out as much as people might have wanted at LSU. And he did opt out, of 2020. But I think that's a guy. If I'm in round 4 and he slides out of the top 100, that's a guy I'm taking a look at because I do see some untapped potential there.
Yeah, and those are good names. I mean, the 2 that came to mind were McNeil and Shelvin. I think both probably are going to go in the 3rd round, maybe. We'll have to see. I mean, if they wait maybe a little bit longer, an interesting player, Bobby Brown from A&M. He flashes, but he's inconsistent. I think he could play some of that 1 because he does have some power to him, and I think that he has yet to play his best football. He's still young. He doesn't turn 21 until I think August. So Bobby Brown's one of those intriguing upside guys in a class that is just a not good nose tackle group.
And he played his high school ball right down the street from AT&T Stadium, from Lamar High School in Arlington. So, hey, he's known the area. He's been around here, and they've had a lot of good defensive line talent coming out of Arlington. Kind of keeping with this, though, Dane, I've got kind of a two-part question for you here, and this is from Connor Livesay, our good friend on Twitter, who's been trying to ask a question for like 4 weeks, and I keep missing his question somehow whenever the show comes up, so I'll get to this. And I know, I'm the worst. What areas of McNeil's game do you guys have questions about, and why isn't he defensive tackle number one? That's the first part of the question, Dane. The second one is he wants a scouting report on Syracuse defensive tackle McKinley Williams, and why was his Clemson tape the best defensive line tape of 2020?
Well, with McNeil, I think there's plenty to like about him. He reminds me a lot of, or he gave me flashbacks of watching Javon Hargrave as a prospect. He's heavy-handed. He's got that body type that you want, that thick thighs, that thick torso, that bubble that you're looking for in a nose tackle.
I call that a power bottom.
Exactly. He plays close to the ground, so he's got some flexibility to him. He eats up blockers. He wins gaps. He can reset the line of scrimmage with his power. I didn't see a very rangy player, and I thought he was part of a pretty heavy rotation that really allowed him to stay fresh. Something to consider as well. But he's an easy player to like. I don't know that he's going to. It's tough with defensive tackles because you have to really understand what's their impact potential. Especially if they're not. It's one thing if they're a pass rusher, then it's a little easier to project their impact potential. If they're not a pass rusher, then that's where it gets a little bit tougher to truly understand what's their value in the draft. Are they a third round pick, fourth round pick? And I think McNeil falls in that category where I don't know how much he gives you as a pass rusher, and so what is that exact value? And so that's why I think he's a day two player, but even that maybe more of a third than a two. It just it's going to come down to preference, and we have to factor in too. This is a weak nose tackle group, so a guy like McNeil could get pushed up the board for a team that is looking for that guy. If you're picking, just say the Cowboys for example, if you're picking mid-second round. And you are looking at nose tackle and you don't feel great about the guys that are going to be there third, fourth round, you might feel pressured to maybe pull the trigger a little bit earlier. And not just the Cowboys, but several teams that are in the market for a one technique or a player that can play over the center. So it's a really interesting dynamic with these nose tackles.
What about McKinley Williams?
Jane, you're going to have to handle McKinley Williams.
Oh, yes, from Syracuse. I don't know. I need to see more on him. I don't think I have a great feel for him yet and where he fits in this class. But give me time on him. We'll come back to him.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, it's still, what is it, February 4th at this point, so that makes a lot of sense. Connor's just ahead of all of us. That's the only issue. Now,
I don't think Connor's ahead of Dane.
Oh, he's
I'm
not.
just going to throw that out
No,
there.
he's not. He's not ahead of Dane. Don't worry.
I don't think anyone's ahead of Dane.
Nobody's ahead of Dane.
Throw that out there.
Yeah, even some of the GMs in the league are not ahead of Dane. Most of the GMs in the league are not ahead of Dane. Okay, Kevin on Twitter asked this, and I'm going to go straight to KT with this one. And he said, some would disagree. How do the Cowboys pass on Kyle Pitts if he's there at 10? And what is your opinion on Tyson Campbell with the second pick, meaning 44th overall?
I mean, you pass on him if a cornerback's on the board or a defensive player that you're in love with is on the board, or if Trey Lance is on the board because you've decided not to sign Dak.
Oh.
That's how you pass on Kyle Pitts. But no, I mean, I understand the Kyle Pitts thing. I think you can get tied in with another year of Jarwin, another year of Dalton Schultz as your backup. If they want to bring back the Belldozer as tight end 3, I'm all about it. But that's how you pass on Kyle Pitts. I love Kyle Pitts, and I think there's a good chance Kyle Pitts is not there at 10. But it's asset allocation and roster building is more important than ever when you are paying your quarterback a lot. And the Cowboys are going to be paying their quarterback a lot because they're going to either tag him or sign him. And that's all important. And that's what you should do. You should pay your quarterback. Tyson Campbell is very interesting. And it kind of leads to something we're going to talk about in the third segment about cornerback size. I'm a little higher on Eric Stokes than Tyson Campbell, but Tyson Campbell's the better athlete. Tyson Campbell is longer. I've got him at 6'2", 185. The traits are all there. The length, the speed, those are the things that are all there. There are times, and it's not always, there are times when it just doesn't look natural playing the cornerback position. You go watch Patrick Surtain play, it looks pretty natural. Even the Eric Stokes tape, to me, he looks pretty natural on the other side, but Tyson Campbell's going to get drafted higher than Eric Stokes because he's got better traits, and it's all about traits. But I think he did a good job, carrying wide receivers across the field. You could see that. He could keep up with them because he's got good recovery speed if they do get a step or two on him. I don't know, given with his length, I want him getting more of a jam at the line of scrimmage. You didn't always see that when he was up in press technique, but to me, tons of ceiling. I got a lot of ceiling with Trevon Diggs over there as well. I like Tyson Campbell. I've got a second-round grade on him, but there are just some things that you want to see shored up with him.
Yeah, I think one thing with him too, when you watched him this year, offenses were not afraid to throw at him because it's tough because he has a lot of the traits, but I mean, when you are drafting a corner in the first 50 or 60 picks, you want a guy that can get his head turned and find the football. And he just didn't do that consistently, and that's what really worries me on Campbell. So I agree with a lot of what you said. The traits are easy to like, and the length, the size. He's a very smooth athlete for a guy that big. But it's the way offenses attacked him really do make you worry. And one thing on McKinley Williams, the reason I have not seen enough of him yet, he's not in this draft class. So just wanted to put that out there.
Oh wow, well that makes a lot of sense. Oh,
anytime Dane says "give me time," it means the dude's not
even in the draft at all. Connor,
just to clarify, he's going back to school, so he'll be at Syracuse next year.
Goodness gracious.
Real quick on Campbell, I'll be quick here. I have him just on my board right now. I have him as my 8th cornerback. So, I mean, and that's probably second round, right? That's probably with the potential to get the top 60 picks. So,
yeah, it's tough when you compare him to Eric Stokes and Melifonwu and Aaron Robinson, Elijah Molden. Like, there's different types of corners.
Now you're cooking, Dane.
I don't want to step on if we're going to talk about this in a little bit.
We are,
but a lot of different types of corners. So we'll save it for a little bit later.
Jeff, do you want me to save it, or do you want to go to break real quick, and then we can come right back and hit it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a carryover of this topic. For instance, Campbell and Stokes are my 10th and 11th corners in this draft, and it plays into what we're going to talk about next, the reason behind it.
That makes sense.
We're back with a tasty treat that's sweeping airwaves and taste buds. It's new Dr. Pepper and Cream Soda. Let's take a listen.
Dr. Pepper and Cream Soda's here. A new combo that's music to my ears, okay. Let's play. Cream soda and Dr. Pepper time. Pour it in a glass of ice.
Music to my ears and mouth. New Dr. Pepper and Cream Soda.
A delicious duet.
There's nothing as unique as our eyes, which is why Essilor pioneers ways to make lenses as unique as you. Verilux for super sharp vision, Essential Blue for protection, and Crizal for freedom from glare. 3 cutting-edge solutions in a single unique lens. So whatever your needs, insist on Essilor. Visit your local Essilor experts and find the perfect lens for you. See more, do more, Essilor.
The Cowboys way, where 16 Hall of Famers and 5 championships shows us what success looks like. Where turkey is always the second best part of Thanksgiving Day. Where we are all defined by one single thing, the star. Where we as fans know it's our job to keep the tradition going. Bank of America is proud to be the official bank of the Dallas Cowboys and to support the quest of living life the Cowboys way.
Copyright 2020, Bank of America Corporation.
Dear, it's 1908. Don't you think we should get electricity?
And stop using candles to see at night.
It's just electricity lights up the room fast. It's more reliable than candles blowing out, and people seem to love it nationwide.
Well, candles are...
Dear, did you just run into the wall?
Nope. May I have a new candle, please?
Historically, switching to new technology is a no-brainer. Today, it's AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure, and nationwide. Switch to AT&T 5G. It's not complicated. 5G requires compatible plan. May not be in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show.
Back here on the Draft Show, final 15 minutes or so. Glad you're with us. Jeff Kavanaugh, Dane Brugler, Kevin KT Turner. I'm Kyle Yeomans, and this is the conversation Jeff has been itching to have. Whether you're a Cowboys fan, you're a draft fan, you're an NFL fan, doesn't matter. This is the discussion we need to have. It's a sit-down, it's a heart-to-heart with Jeff Kavanaugh about different types of corners, and Dane said there's a lot of different types of corners in this draft that could potentially intrigue you. I mean, we talked about Elijah Molden out of Washington, Florida State's Asante Samuel Jr. Then you've got the top guys like a Patrick Surtain and a Caleb Farley. I mean, there are all these different types of corners. But, Jeff, whenever it comes to the Cowboys, why are you so skeptical on the types that they're looking at?
Well, okay, so this is my thing with how we do the draft and how we do cornerback. I feel like everybody is looking for guys that are 6'2" and up. And I'm just kind of going backwards and asking myself and everybody else, why? Why are we pretending that everybody that we're going to cover in the NFL is like 6'3"? When I get a bunch of dudes in the NFL and it's like, all right, congrats, you got all your 6'2" guys. Now, time to go win the Super Bowl. Here's Tyreek Hill. All right, well, my guy's falling down every time Tyreek Hill changes direction. And, all right, here's the Super Bowl. Go cover Stephon Diggs. All right, my 6'2" guy's falling down left and right. I wonder, why are we so into the idea of the 6'2" and the 6'3" corner? And maybe part of it is just that I'm finding a bunch of corners in this class that I like that are under 6 foot. And I'm tired of them being height shamed, by the community. So my guys who are 5'10", 5'11", just like Jair Alexander, maybe the best corner in the NFL, I don't want to just immediately throw everybody who's 5'10" into, well, he's a nickel guy, because there's plenty of receivers in the NFL that are 5'9" to 5'11" that are number ones that play outside that you're going to have to cover. So just the idea that in the draft world, I am not going to be consistently looking for and rewarding guys for being tall. I'm going to find the best players, and I'm going to have guys like Asante Samuel and Elijah Molden and Robinson at UCF and Shakur Brown at Michigan State ahead of Tyson Campbell, 6'2", runs fast from Georgia, because I care less about your profile. And maybe this comes back to the thing that Dane talks about, where it's kind of like the player versus the traits. You can keep your traits. I want the players. So the 5'10" and the 5'11" guys that can cover really well, that are physical, that can play a football, I'm going to take them over 6'2" and 4'3" all day, day. That's my corner thing. It's a question, it's a comment, it's a commentary, it's a speech, and I'm done now. Have a great day. I'll see you guys next week.
No, I think you're right. Like, that's how it should be. The number one trait when you're scouting the cornerback position should always be athleticism. To me, it easy, more so than size. And I would argue next is your ability to process, your mental processing. So those are the top two traits that I know personally I look for: athleticism and then mental processing. If you have those two things, yeah, you can play for me any day. I think when we talk about length with corners, it's not too dissimilar when we talk about arm length for offensive tackles. I think just it helps if you're a little bit longer. If you have 35-inch arms compared to 32-inch arms as offensive tackle, those 3 inches can sometimes make a big difference. And so helping that kind of, close the gap is something that teams will look for. But if you can't move as an offensive tackle, it's not going to matter much. And it's the same thing with corners. If you're a super long player, that's great. But if you're not a good athlete, it's not going to matter much. So the size is something that I think should be used to help break ties. So if you think Tyson Campbell and Elijah Molden are on the same level as a prospect, then Tyson Campbell should get a little bit of a bump because he has the size advantage. But if you think that Elijah Molden's just a flat-out better player, then I certainly understand that too.
No, I think I've been guilty of this before in the past, so you always try to get better at this, right? We sometimes take measurements and information that you would typically get at pro days or a combine or whatever. We sometimes tend to take those measurements and we treat them like currency almost. And it really doesn't have to be that way. You trust what your eyes see and things like that, but just to play devil's advocate to what Jeff said, because I agree with most, if not everything, what Jeff said, Tyreek Hill in the Super Bowl. Well, what happens if Ardarius Washington from TCU is your free safety, and he's got to get over and get on top of Mike Evans in the Super Bowl? You're going to wish that your guy was a little longer. You're going to wish your guy was a little longer.
I want the guy who's going to get there. If your quarterback throws a perfect ball and does the math in his head for 60 yards downfield when the free safety gets there where the corner is and leaves it outside and high on the sideline where my 5'8" safety can't reach it, good on you. Try it again. I'd much rather have a badass, instinctual, athletic dude that makes plays than a guy who's taller and faster. That's all. And you didn't have to drag my safety into it. That's something that you chose to do, KT. You chose violence on a Thursday with me. You didn't have to bring him into this. Nobody asked you to do that. Ardarius Washington, safety number 1, all 5'8" of him. Let's go.
Offside on the defense.
Richie Grant, safety number 2. Just if anybody's keeping track at home.
Something else to throw into this conversation with corners, because cornerback might be my favorite position to evaluate because it's so much fun. It's like you're breaking down a dance. You have to be so technically refined, but at the same time you have to be a top athlete. First and foremost, I think you need space athletes, guys that can hold their own in space, and then you have to judge. There's just not a good athlete and a bad athlete. There are certain levels of athlete. You have to. And there's different types of speed. There's transition speed. There's drive speed. There's break on the ball speed. All these different levels. So it's just a really fascinating position to evaluate. And I think the better athlete, the more you can compromise on size, because ideally you don't want a 5'9" corner. But if he's a top athlete, then the more you can compromise on that. It's something that is it's really a fascinating because it is arguably the toughest position to play, just because you're left out on an island against another top athlete, and you don't know what's coming, and you just have to stop them from making a play, and it's tough. But it makes it I think a fun position to evaluate.
Well, and Jeff said something very interesting in our just really quickly here, KT, but kind of tying together what all three of you guys were just talking about, but that was specifically whenever it came to the size and the athleticism of these corners. Whenever you look at the division that the Cowboys are in, who are they going up against in terms of wide receivers that are the better wide receivers? It's Terry McLaurin for Washington, it's Sterling Shepard for New York, and I guess Deshaun Jackson / Jalen Reagor for Philadelphia. I mean, those are the guys. They're slot receivers that are quick, that are not very tall, that are agile, and they're going to come right over the middle of the field. So shouldn't these smaller corners that have that athleticism that Dane's talking about, that kind of allow you to take them earlier in the draft, be higher value to the Cowboys, Jeff, because just based off of the competition they're going for?
Well, I think they should be higher value by everybody because, sure, Devontae Adams isn't small and Mike Evans is big and Allen Robinson's not small, but, I mean, it's the NFL. Receivers look like us. It's different, not quite like us.
They look like CeeDee Lamb and Devontae Smith.
5'9", 6 foot, 6'1". This guy's 5'11". Oh, here's a 6'3" guy. This guy's 6 foot. He's 6'1". 6'4" over there. It's all over the place. So I don't think you need to be like building your team with the idea that you gotta have this height and this length. Like if and I don't mean to pick on the guy, but if Tyson Campbell, the 6'2" guy at Georgia, has a better career than Asante Samuel Jr., I'll eat the microphone. Like there's a different level to how well you understand the game, how quickly you're processing information. this spatial awareness that comes with playing corner when you're playing zone. So, like, sure, you in theory might even, and maybe even outruns them in the 40, right? And so now you're bigger, longer, faster. But if we run 20 football plays and we see who creates the smaller window for the quarterback in various situations, it's going to be Asante Samuel Jr. because he's better at it.
Jeff, I'm interested. You said I think Tyson Campbell and Stokes were 10 and 11 ranked corners. I'm interested. Who are your top 10 corners that you've studied so far?
It is Caleb Farley, 1, Patrick Surtain, J.C. Horn, Asante Samuel Jr., 4, Elijah Molden, 5, Melifonwu, 6, Robinson, 7 at Central Florida, Brown I did him yesterday. Brown at Michigan State, 8. And actually, Graham Jr. at Oregon is 9.
Senior Bowl guy.
And then Campbell and Stokes.
Interesting.
And I don't know how he did it. I don't know how he did it at the Senior Bowl, but I liked his. I liked the tape that I've gotten to so far on Graham.
I like it. No, the only one out of that I don't really love is Graham. But the rest, I have no really big disagreements there. I guess my only disagreement would be I really like Greg Newsome from Northwestern. He would be.
I haven't seen him yet. That's cheating. So just call Campbell and Stokes 11 and 12 or whatever. Move him down one because I'm assuming I'll like Newsome better. I just haven't seen him yet.
Gotcha. Yeah. No. It's and that's. All those guys that you mentioned are top 100 guys. So or maybe top 75 guys. So it's a really interesting group of corners.
Where are you on Darian Kendrick, Dane, from Clemson?
He didn't come out.
Yeah, he went back
to Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, breaking news.
KT and Connor, man.
Yeah, KT, I was really high on him, too. I wanted him to come out, but he ended up going back. I agree.
He might have been the best athlete in the group among all these guys. Just really, really raw, and so I think he made maybe the better decision by going back. He has got a chance to be a really good corner if he figures things out. Because he was a wide receiver when he showed up. He's still figuring things out.
Yeah. I think another year at the college level is going to do him well.
I have almost the same order. Aaron Robinson of Central Florida, I have 4th. So Farley, Surtain, Horn, Robinson, Samuel, Stokes, Campbell, Molden, Melifonwu, Newsome for me. I think that's 10 I named off. And then I've kind of got on my day 3 radar Tariq Castro Fields from Penn State, although I need to check and see if he came out.
No, he's going back.
Okay,
he's going back.
News a month ago.
KT, I gotta tell you.
I tell you that extra year of eligibility,
it messed everything up.
It's tough. Yeah, a lot of kids are taking advantage of that. So
thanks for tuning into the draft show with 3 experts and KT.
Hey, I want to mark. Make sure you get it on tape. Make sure that it's on tape. Let's mark it that Jeff's going to eat the microphone if Campbell has a better career than Samuel. Can we just get that and keep it?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm going to keep this microphone for that purpose. This one right here.
Oh,
and it's going to. God, that would be
microphone.
A terrible meal.
Yeah,
there are a couple corners that we haven't talked about that are pretty good. Paulson Adebo. We got to figure out what to do with him out of Stanford. Yeah, Robert Rochelle from Central Arkansas is a small school guy, but a really good athlete who could go top 100. I really like what we saw from Benjamin St-Juste from Minnesota at the Senior Bowl. Keith Taylor, somewhere in that mix. So it's a really interesting group of corners that there's going to be a lot of split opinion when we talk about corners 4 through 12 in that range.
And it's going to be like that throughout the course of the draft process. Also, Brian Mills out of North Carolina Central, I believe. Is that what his school is? Yeah, North Carolina Central. That just tells you how much I know about that school. But, yeah, I thought he looked really nice at the Senior Bowl. I thought he had a good week of practice down in Mobile. So there's a lot of those corners that are going to be kind of talked about all the way through the draft. I mean, of course, with the Cowboys needing help at corner, I wouldn't be surprised if they double dip at that position again for the second straight year. Last year it was Trayvon Diggs and Reggie Robinson. One of them didn't catch the field. The other one has a ton of upside as a starter and maybe the number 1 corner on this ball club at the moment. But corner is definitely going to have a microscope on it, and we'll continue to do that along the way here on the Draft Show. But that's going to do it for us today. For Chris Beam in the back, For Kevin KT Turner, Jeff Kavanaugh, and Dane Brugler, I'm Kyle Yeomans. Be sure to catch this group again Thursday next week, 10 a.m. Central Time. And then you could also have the other group with Brian Broaddus, Bucky Brooks, and David Hellman at 10 a.m. Central Time on Tuesday. But until then, so long here on The Draft Show.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.